In this session, we're going to have a look at mastering application forms. So, why does it matter? There are over 140 applications per vacancy in some sectors. Competition can be really fierce, and AI powered screening systems will eliminate generic applications early. So your application form has to be tailored and it has to be a well crafted form that will stand out and secure you an interview. Now, preparation is key. You have to research the organisation before you start completing your application form. You need to have read the job description and the person specification and really know what it is that the employer is asking for. Now, when you're writing the form, you need to make sure that you don't make vague lists. This tells an employer nothing meaningful. Instead, what you want to do is provide context and specifics. So, for example, with your skills, don't just list the skills you have, you need to demonstrate how you've got that skill. So instead of saying, I have strong communications and leadership abilities, you need to be showing how you've used those skills in real situations. Make sure that you can offer the qualifications, the experience, and the personal skills that the employer is seeking. And one top tip is to draft your application form in Word, proofread it, get other people to check it before you put it into the actual form. Now, one of the most important parts of an application form is the supporting statement. This is probably one of the first parts of the application form that the employer will go to and will read. You need to make sure that you address every single point that is on the person specification in a clearly themed paragraph. In your first sentence, you might make a short statement summarizing how you feel you can meet or relate to that specific requirement. You then want to go on to give a concrete example, and you should use the STAR technique to make sure that you've done that. And then you want to show a final sentence of reflection because that will add depth to the point that you are making. As well as a supporting statement, quite often application forms will have competency questions. Now, some people view these as the hardest part of the form. The employer is asking for examples of specific skills that are on the person specification, and they want to know what your examples are to prove that you've got each of those skills. So, an employer will ask these questions to see if you do possess the skills and traits that would make you successful in that role. When you're answering those questions and when you're doing your supporting statement and giving examples, try to use the STAR technique to structure your answers. So, S stands for situation. You describe the situation. You go on to talk about the task that was required of you, and then what your action was. And finally, you give a result. If you want to go a step further, you could evaluate. Tell them what you've learned from the event, the example, and what you might change in future scenarios. One top tip is to try to keep to proportion. So we say 10% is talking about the situation, 15% the task, 50% of your answers should be the action part, and then 25% should be the result. And if you can get that reflection in there, that will help as well. So it is imperative that you show evidence and not just make a claim. So use power verbs throughout your application form, words like organised, delivered, transformed, and support with facts and metrics wherever possible. Really try to avoid cliches and vague assertions. Every single application form has to be tailored to the employer and the job that you are going for. The worst thing that you can do is to copy and paste from one application form to another because they are all so different and every personal specification will be different. Every application form has to be tailored to that job. You want to make sure that you mirror language and keywords that are on the job specs because ATS systems can scan for those. Details and accuracy really matters on an application form. So follow the instructions that you've been given to the letter. Make sure that there are no typos or grammar slips. They can be seen as immediate red flags. And make sure that you fill in every section and don't leave any blanks. So some common pitfalls to avoid. If you ignore instructions, that often means instant rejection. Do not copy and paste. That will always show that there are errors. And make sure that you don't lie or exaggerate on your application form. So finally, some finishing touches. Make sure you proofread thoroughly and get a second pair of eyes on that. You can always send your application forms in to the careers team and we will look at those for you. Or you could book a careers interview with us and we can go through your application form with you. Make sure you keep a copy of your application form for when you get to the interview stage. Always submit ahead of deadline. Don't leave it until the last minute. So your take-home checklist. Research the job and tailor your answers. Draft your answers in Word before you put it into the application form. Use the STAR technique and use strong verbs and metrics. Proofread it, get somebody else to proofread it and remove any errors. Always save and review a copy. Take it along to a careers advisor to check along with the job description and the person specification and make sure that you submit early. Okay, that's the end of the session. If you do need any further help on application forms, please do book an appointment with a careers advisor.